another Django tutorial. In today's tutorial, we're going to build off of what we were working with in our previous tutorial where we actually built the view. Now we need to work on the URLs. All right, so I was trying to think of a good acronym or idea of how you guys can all visualize how this whole big request and response works. And I kind of thought of one of basically our views is like a cable box, all right? A user tunes into a channel, our view takes that channel, deciphers it and says, okay, this is what they want, and spits back a template as a response, which would be our channel or our movie or TV show or whatnot. So we need a way to give them we need to give the users a path. And we do that via URLs. So that would be our channel. Like, hey, tune to this channel, you get this. So we got to give them a path. So we got to create URLs. That's our request. That's how we get our request, is via the URLs. All right. So what is a URL? Well, a URL is a uniform resource locator. So let's go ahead and think about that for a second. Uniform resource locator. That's what it stands for. All right. So it's a single way to gain resources, if you will, if you think about it, or find resources. Well, that's what we're kind of doing by giving them the request. They're going to request a resource, and we're going to return it to them. So that's how we use the URLs. Now, what was I going to say? To do this, we need to work in our urls.py file. Now, if you look in your project, we have a urls.py file over here, and I'm going to close some of these guys here, in our CMS file. All right. Now, if we can put our views, our URL pattern or our URLs in here for our blog app, but then that takes kind of away from it being a truly pluggable app. And I want to try to stick with the mentality that our apps are pluggable, which means if I took this blog app up here, this whole thing, if I took this out and put it into a new project, it should basically work with minor editing. It should just work right out of the box. All right. Now, if I went and put my URL patterns in the CMS urls.py, then I have to add more work to it, and it's not truly pluggable. So what we want to do is make it pluggable. And that's what you should always try to do, because we don't want to repeat ourselves. Use the dry concept. We don't want to repeat ourselves. So we're going to go ahead and create a new file in here called urls.py. So if you're in Sublime Text, you can just simply click on blog, right click on it, create a new file, and we're going to call it, and we're going to save it as urls.py. Once my computer picks up here. There we go. So urls.py, and since mine's very high up there, I'll just slide it down so you can see it, urls.py, and that's going in the blog directory. So I'll go ahead and save that. Alright, so I have that in the urls.py file inside my directory. So now we're going to put our URL patterns for our blog in here. Alright, so what's the first step? Well, first thing we needed to do is go ahead and import a module called URL, all right, or URLs, I should say. And what we're going to do is import URLs, so Django knows how to handle the URLs. So let's go ahead and do that first, and I'll talk about what it actually does. So we'll go from Django dot conf, which is config, URLs, import URL. Alright. So what we're doing here is we're importing a package or a module. So what this module does is it looks for a variable in this file called URL patterns. And that URL patterns is usually in a list, or it can be a tuple, but we'll keep it as a list. And in there, the module is going to go through and loop through here, through what's inside the URL patterns variable, which is containing a list, and it's going to loop through that list. And it's going to look to see if the client side URL matches what's in there. If it does find that, then it's going to follow that path and go to that view. All right. So I'll open up my views file here. All right. So just imagine we have code here. Let's write it out, and then I'll take you down that path. All right. So the first thing we need to do is import URL. The first thing it's going to look for is a variable, and that variable is called URL pattern. So let's create a variable, URL patterns. All right. And we're going to set that equal to an empty list. Empty list is square brackets with nothing in it. Okay. So now when this module runs, it's going to find URL patterns. It's going to loop through whatever's inside this list. So right now there's nothing in there, so it's not going to find anything. But we need to be able to access our view. All right. So how are we going to do that? Well, just like we have before, if we need to access something, we got to import it. So we'll do from views, or actually from dot import views. All right. So we want to do it like that. Because we want access to all our views in here, so we'll just say from dot import views, so we have access to all our views in here, even though we only have one at the moment. Now, the next thing we need to do is create the actual URL. All right, so let's go ahead and hit return, and then in here there's going to be a function. All right, and it's called URL. All right. So inside this URL, we're going to have to, it takes minimum of 2 arguments. The first one being the URL address, which is a regular expression or regex. If you don't know anything about regular expressions, I suggest you go to python.org, look up in the documentation or regular expressions. All right. I'm going to give you a little insight, enough for you to get by using Django, but understanding regular expressions, will get you a long way. All right. So our first argument is a string. So we'll just type that in like a string. All right. And then it's going to take a second argument. And that second argument is our view. So we can put that in there. All right. So we take a string, which is our URL address, a view, which is the view we want to return. So in this case, we only have one view. So let's just go ahead and plug that in right now. We'll do views, dot list of post. Sorry. Now list of post. And why do we put views here? Well, we're saying, hey, it's in the views file. So go in the views file. And then once you're in the views file, find list of posts function. Okay. So that's the view we wanted to return. And then the last one I always put in is going to be a name. I'm going to name it. And the reason I do this is when we're working with templates, we can easily create an URL out of this by using our name. So just bear with me on this one until the next tutorial where we actually start working with some templates. But right now we're just going to name our URL. That's what we're doing. We're naming our URL. All right, back over here. So we got a string, and that string is going to be our URL. And this is the regular expression. Now this is where things get a little confusing to people, so I kind of wanted to leave this to last so I can try to better explain it without you guys focusing on all this. All right. I hope you guys understand views. This goes to the views file. Once in the views file, it goes and finds the list of posts function. So once we're in the views file, list of post function, and it will this is our response. Okay. Now this is the URL, which is our request. So it takes the request and gets the response. So all right. All right. So here is going to be a regular expression string. So always first with the regular expression, even though it's optional, we use R. All right, and R indicates to Python that it's a raw string. Okay. Next thing we need to do is create a string. So 2 quotes. All right, opening and closing, because that's going to be our string. Next one we're going to use is caret. All right, so the caret. What does the caret mean? Well, in regular expression, a caret says if everything up to this point matches, then go on to the next portion. It's the best way I can explain it. Let me see if I can pull up a. Do have a. All right, so here we go. I'm going to go to Google. Google. Because I know this is not working. Google.com. All right. Just so we could look at a URL here. Anyhow, up to this point, if our URL matches all the way up to here, then continue. That's basically what that caret's saying, because when the user comes to our website, they're going to have this part of our URL already in there. All right. So if it matches up to this point, then continue. Then we're going to add one more regular expression in this case, and that's going to be the $. And it says, hey, you hit the end, everything matched to here, you can stop now. Basically, that's what that's saying. So the caret says, if you match all the way up to this point, continue, and then the $sign saying, all right, if you match here and you match the rest of it, you're done. All right. A little confusing. That's why I said go over to python.org and read about regular expressions. Anyhow, basically what our URL now looks like, if you want to take a look at it, is we'll use Google as example, is google.com, like that. So if someone came to google.com, and this would be our actual URL, all right, because there's nothing behind it. We could put stuff behind this, but we don't want to because we want to go to google.com. All right, you guys will get a grasp of this hopefully shortly. All right, so now we got our URL patterns, and this module, what it's going to do is, like I said before, it's going to find a URL patterns variable, and then inside that variable will hold a list or a tuple, but preferably a list. It's going to go through each URL function here, and it's going to see if it matches, and it's going to check all these regular expression strings here. So if it matches, then it's going to go, okay, oh, I found it, and then it's going to go look for that view in the views file, and then once it's in the views file, it's going to find the view function, in this case, a list of posts, and then it's going to return whatever list of posts says to return. So what does the list of posts say return? It says return blog, inside the blog directory of templates, that's where it's going to go, the post directory, and then the list of post HTML. That's what it's going to return, and it's also going to return a context of post if context is included in our HTML file. All right, so that's what's going on. Ah, sweet. So now what we did was we built a URL basically, but you guys, we still need to hook in the main urls.py file. This is the main file, so we need to tell Django that this URL file exists, because right now it has no idea it even exists. So let's go ahead and hook them into each other, and we're going to do that by we're going to go in here, and we have to add it in. All right, so this looks familiar to you, you know, from the Django conf configuration URLs, import URL. We just did that. All right, so that's there. The next one's from Django contrib import admin, and we looked at that a couple tutorials ago. That's our admin site. All right, we don't have to worry about that right now. But here's our little caret, right? So if we took out the caret and said our website was google.com admin, that's what it would look like. But what the caret's doing is just replacing Google, saying, hey, I know you're going to match up till this point, so I'm going to put the caret there, and now I know you can access admin. All right, that's what's going on. I hope that's not confusing to you. It sounds great in my head, but I know it could be confusing. Anyway, now we need to include our other URL file that we just created. This file needs to be included into this file. How are we going to do that? Well, first off, we need to include another function. All right, so we got the URL function, all right, and that's this one right here. Now we need to include another one, and that's called include. Okay, get it? Include a new function, include. All right, so that's going to include another. We use the include function to include another URLs file. All right, so in here we're going to do URL again, URL. All right, so this all looks familiar to the previous URL file that we wrote. Now we're going to do, let's just do our string again so we understand what we're looking for. All right, so we're going to do a string, which is going to be kind of similar to this one up here. It's a regular expression again, and then we need a place for them to find a view, or the response, if you will. We'll do include, and then in here is going to be the path to our new URLs file. Okay, so let's go back to the regular expression first and go ahead and write that out. So like I said before, we always need to include the R to indicate to Python that, hey, this is a raw string. So then we need the string, so 2 quotes, and then in here we're going to say, hey, if you match up to this point, so for example, if we're google.com / if you match that up to this point, then look for the next thing. So we're going to put a caret in there because we know when they visit our website, they're going to match up until that point. All right. Now, since I'm not really sure where I'm going with this whole website, I don't want to make our homepage our list of blog posts. So what I'm going to do is we're going to have, like, for example, google.com / blog / and that's going to be where all our blog posts are. So to do that, we're going to go blog like that, and then a backslash, okay, backslash, and then in that case, I can kind of leave my home page open to whatever we're going to do with this site, because to be honest with you, I really don't know where we're going with this. I'm building a blog right now, so we're going to leave that one open. All right. All right, so we got this set up like this. So when the user comes to our website, if it was Google, to google.com / blog / that's where they're going to find our list of blog posts. Okay, pretty simple. Now we need to include our urls.py file because we need to access the view, and we're not going to put the view in here because, just like I said before, we kind of want it pluggable. So how are we going to do that? Well, the first argument that include needs is, hey, what are we including? Where is this located? Well, we just simply, inside a string, go blog. All right, so inside the blog directory, which is up here, .urls. All right, so you're going to go inside the blog directory, you're going to find urls.py, and then in there, you're going to run through another URL pattern and find our view. Pretty simple, right? Now, this takes another argument, and it's not required, but it does take another argument, and that's called namespace. What is namespace? Well, namespace is just like name we did in the previous URLs file, and it will help us down the road when we're working with templates to create URLs or links in our templates. Okay, it's all it's doing. So don't overthink it until we actually get to writing some URLs in our templates. Then you'll go, the light will come on. You'll be like, oh, that's how that works. That's awesome. But for now, just bear with me. We're going to make something called namespace. So we're going to say namespace is equal to, and then a string, blog. Simple, right? Now the next one I'm going to add in here is app name. And I'm not 100% sure if this is still required, but anywho, I'm going to put it in there anyway just because that's what I do on every Django project I write. So we're just going to put app name in there. App name, blog. It's the name of our app. It's really, I mean, it does, I'm trying to remember. Just put it in there for now. I'm going to look that up after this tutorial to see if it's still required. But in any case, what we did is we created our path, our way for our users to request information, right? So when the user comes to google.com / blog, they're going to hit this URL. So URL function is going to go through and go, all right, the user came to google.com / blog, and it's going to cycle through these URLs. Well, / blog is not admin. Okay, go to the next one. Oh, / blog. Oh, that matches. All right, I'm going to go here, and it says include blogs.urls. Okay, I go there. So I go up here, all the way up here, and I go into blog, and I go down and look for URLs. Oh, there's URLs, and I come through, and I am still at URLs, or I'm still at google.com / blog, and I come into this pattern. Oh, that matches. Oh, sweet. Views. Now I go into my views file, and I go over here in views, and it said list of posts. I find list of posts, and I'm going to return a template that says list of posts.html, and I'm going to probably have some context in there, and it's going to spit that template back to the user, and that's how it all works. Ta-da. If you have any questions, please let me know. I think I'm losing it today, so if I didn't explain this very well, let me know about that too. But anyway, I hope you guys gather what I was getting at here. We will be working with URL patterns a lot more, and our URLs in general, because between URLs and the views are probably the two most important parts of any Django project. So we'll be working with these quite often. If you have questions, please ask. Otherwise, don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to share the video. Help us out. Let us be seen. So I'll see you.